Koreans. Joining me now to talk about these latest developments is Congressman Adam Kinzinger of Illinois. He is a member of the Foreign Affairs Committee. Sir, thanks for taking the time with us today.
You bet. Yep.
Okay, so you have Pence saying the U.S. is ready to talk, and then Tillerson is saying it's up to the North Koreans to engage. Where is the U.S. in respect to engagement with North Korea?
Well, I don't think those two positions are incongruent. I think on the one hand saying we understand that there's going to be a point at which we need to talk is one thing. And then I think saying we'll wait till the North Koreans ready, it's still congruent, because what it basically says is we're willing to talk, but it's going to be on our terms. It's not going to be during nuclear testing. It's not going to be while you're sprinting to the finish line of getting a nuclear weapon, because we've done this 100 times before. If you remember back in 1994, President Clinton basically was about to approve, or at least had on his desk, plans to bomb North Korea because of their chasing nuclear weapons. And Jimmy Carter miraculously showed up in Pyongyang and said, we have peace in our time, and we're still where we are today. So I think we're willing to talk. It's obvious that the sanctions are having an impact, but the timing has to be right, because it's going to be on our terms, or else this is fruitless.
Do you see how it's confusing when you listen to what these two leaders are saying about talks?
I think if you look at it and say they're saying two different things, yeah. But like I said, when I hear somebody say it's going to be when they're ready to talk, and then I hear the vice president say we're willing to talk, I think it's saying, hey, we're willing to talk to North Korea, but it's going to be when they're ready, in essence, when they've made the decision to quit sprinting after nuclear weapons. So maybe it seems incongruent. I don't think it is. I think it's actually pretty much an administration on the same page. The reality is this, though. I think if we are hopeful that somehow we have a joint South Korean, North Korean Olympic team, and, we're going to go into talks, and somehow Kim Jong-un has, in the last month, decided he doesn't want nuclear weapons, let's not get our hopes up, because we've been down this road probably 20 times in the past.
I want to talk to you about government spending, because the president today is unveiling a $200 billion infrastructure plan. I wonder, is that something that you can support?
Devil's going to be in the details there. I think infrastructure is one of the main jobs of the federal government. It's in the Constitution. Constitution says Congress has post offices and post roads being infrastructure. We have to have a grown-up conversation about how we're funding it. I think we have to be courageous in that and say whether it's a gas tax issue or whether it's something with finding a different way to fund infrastructure. But also, it sounds like in some of the details, some of that spending is actually what was approved in the budget that we did last week. There's actually billions of dollars for infrastructure already in there, and I think some of the military spending can count too. So look, I'd love to have an infrastructure plan that works and that's bipartisan, but really the devil's in the details for something like that.
But even that plan that was passed last week is, it adds to government spending, right? That's just the truth. And one of your Republican colleagues in the House, Ohio's Jim Jordan, slams the latest budget agreement. He says it's not consistent with Republican promises to cut spending. This is what he said specifically about the Speaker, Paul Ryan.
Do I think the Speaker has problems? Yes, I do, particularly now as we head into this big immigration debate. Just a few years ago, he was viewed as the leader of fiscal responsibility in our party, and now he presides over a bill that increases spending $300 billion, a $1 trillion deficit. When we were so poised to win this fight, of course he's got problems.
And then you have the tax bill that Republicans are touting as a victory, but it also adds considerably to the deficit over 10 years. So when you look at all of that spending, and when it comes to this infrastructure bill, it seems really unclear, although we're hoping to get more details soon about what's going to pay for it. That's a lot of money. Do you worry that your party is giving up on being the party of fiscal responsibility?
Yeah, of course it's a worry. And look, Jim Jordan never misses an opportunity to slam somebody in his own party. In fact, I see him do that more often than he does anybody else. So Jim Jordan's comment don't surprise me. It's interesting because he always talks about how he's a supporter of military spending, but he's been supporting of the sequester. And frankly, a lot of folks in that Freedom Caucus actually say, they've told me privately that they want military spending to be less. What we did in this budget is we fixed the military because there was this blunt hammer that came in 2011 called sequester, which was intended to never occur. It was supposed to get us to make grown-up decisions decisions, and it was supposed to be a thing that never happened. It happened. And in the process, it devastated our military. Last week, this was our chance to basically pay for our sins of what we've done to the military and bring the military where it needs to be. The Democrats demanded a massive increase in domestic spending, even though they couldn't articulate why. But we have to have 60 votes in the Senate, so they had a seat at the table and they got it.
But the tax
what we
cuts,
really have to do now.
But the tax cuts, the spending, this proposed infrastructure. I ask because when you look back here in recent decades, Republicans, throughout the 80s, it was about being, there was this messaging, this narrative that kind of came out until you saw George W. Bush. It was about being fiscally responsible. Then there was a lot of spending, and Republicans paid dearly politically for it. I just wonder how much that's on your mind, considering the conversation that we're having today. All of this being added to deficit spending is so much different than discussions of entitlement reform and coming to a grand fiscal bargain with President Obama. It's a very different thing.
It is different. Look, George W. Bush's increase was because of 9/11 and also the addition of Medicare Part D, which a lot of people will say is successful. In terms of us, look, 25% of the federal government spending. 25% of the federal government spending is what we have any control over. 75% is autopilot spending. You have 10,000 baby boomers retiring a day. If you can make an adjustment to entitlements for guys my age, I'm 39. If you tell me that maybe there's a delay in retirement or something, a means testing for me when I get to that age, but it saves it for current seniors and it puts us on a right fiscal trajectory in 10 to 20 years, I'd be a yes on that.
But
because
no
I
one's
can make a
talking about that, Congressman. You know that. That's not even, that's not on the agenda at all. I hear what you're saying, and we've heard it in recent years, but it's like that has disappeared from the conversation.
Well, and I think it needs to come back. The problem is when we talk about it, you'll have some on the other side that say you're cutting taxes and spending more on the military so that you have to cut Social Security for seniors. Of course, that's not the case. And the problem is that both sides play corrosive politics, but especially the left plays corrosive politics when we talk about reforming entitlements, saving it for current seniors. So if we can have these grown-up discussions, the tax cuts were necessary to get the economy rolling again. It's just like if a business finds itself stagnated, it will spend money to build an additional line or to hire more people to get itself moving again.
But the economy isn't stagnated.
No, well, it's especially not now, not since President Trump has taken over, not since the promise of tax cuts. A lot of this that has gone up over the last year was over this expectation of tax cuts happening and tax reform. And there's no doubt that putting us on a trajectory on the international tax code to compete with every other country, talk to any of your friends in any other country in the world, and they'll say that corporate tax reform specifically really made us more competitive with their companies.
All right, Congressman.